Hi everyone, my name is Rand Fishkin. I'm the CEO here at SEO Moz. I've been doing SEO for a very long time, since all the way back in 2002. And today I'd like to talk to you about what SEO is, how it can help your business, why it's important to you, and some of the best practices. This little introduction should take 10 to 15 minutes. Hopefully it'll give you a lot of the basics. Let's dive right in. So when you perform a search on the major search engines, right, I'm using Google as an example here, you get something like this, right? You get these results and they tend to be very relevant to the search that you performed. They give you lots of good information. Google tends to order things in the order that they think is most appropriate, most relevant, most popular, those kinds of things. And these results over the years have gotten really, really good. Let's figure out, how did they do this? What's the process search engines use to calculate relevancy, to figure out which results to put in here, and to see which ones rank highest? So the first thing that search engines do in order to find pages on the internet, which is a huge, massive place with literally hundreds of billions of different URLs, different pages of content across hundreds of millions of websites, is search engines write spiders. They're automated programs, also called bots. In this case, Google uses one that identifies itself as it crawls the web as Googlebot. And I've drawn this hopefully adorable picture to help illustrate that. These search engines crawl the web, so they look at, they'll start with a seed set of websites, and then they'll crawl out from there looking at all the pages that those websites link to. They use those links to find the structure of the internet and to discover all the pages on the web. It turns out that the web is highly interconnected and that you can reach even the far corners of the internet in just a few hops away from some of the most popular and important websites. After they crawl the web, they need to build an index of these documents. They do what's called a keyword inverted index, which means that they store all the documents by the terms and phrases that appear on them or they think are relevant to them. So that it's very quick when you search for example, NASA, Google knows, hey, we've already got an index of all the pages that we found that we think are relevant to NASA, and we can make queries against those much more quickly than we could against say, an index with all of the hundreds of billions of documents on the web. Once they've got those indices, they calculate what they call query-independent metrics. I know that sounds fancy and tough to get your head around. It's really actually quite simplistic. You see, the search engines know that pages have attributes that are important in relation to the keywords that someone searched for, but they also have attributes of importance, of popularity, things like how many people link to them, who links to them, what are those people saying about them, are the people who link to them reputable and trustworthy, are the people who link to them popular and important, which gets to the PageRank algorithm, which we won't go into depth here on, but you can read more about in some of our other resources. They calculate these metrics so that it's very fast when they say, show me all the pages from NASA and order them by the most popular and important ones, that they can quickly know which pages in that keyword inverted index are the most popular, most relevant, most important ones, as opposed to just which ones are in there, and now we have to calculate all that data on the fly. So search engines do these millions and millions of calculations in fractions of the time it used to take them. Back in the day, to crawl the web, build an index, do this pre-processing calculation stuff, and issue these things out, Google would take nearly a month. In fact, they had monthly updates that they used to call the Google dance. Today, that same dance takes less than a few hours. Pretty remarkable. So let's go back to the search results and talk for a sec about how people actually use these search results. The thing is, when folks are typing words and phrases in here, the results that come up are related to their queries, certainly, but they also take into account a lot of things about searcher behavior and how people use things. There's all sorts of stuff in the results now, like personalization and vertical search and these kinds of things. What I want to talk about today, real quick, is the demand, how people think about what things to type into these boxes and why that's so important to marketers, to businesses, and anyone who's thinking about practicing SEO. So let's take a quick dive over here and talk about keyword demand. So the really interesting thing is that while lots and lots of people will do common searches, like I mentioned, NASA, they'll search for things like car loans. They might search for their favorite ice cream store down the street. And then they might search for very, very strange things like a combination of their name in addition to some press release, right? And probably very few people perform those searches. The really weird thing about this is those searches that are performed many, many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times a month actually represent only a small fraction of the total quantity of searches that are performed in Google. In fact, if you take all of the searches that are performed more than 100 times a month, you're going to find that adds up to less than 30% of all the searches that take place. That means that 70% or more of searches take place in what SEOs call the long tail. Now, the long tail of demand is those strange, weird keywords that only get searched for maybe a few times a month, maybe only once a month ever. But it turns out that those odd searches, those many multi-word searches, take up the massive amount of demand in the search engines overall. In fact, Google came out with a stat a few years ago. They said that a full 20%, 1/5, of all the queries that are performed on Google search engine have never been performed before. Each month, 1/5 have never been seen before. No one's ever searched for them. It's an absolutely remarkable stat, and it speaks to the size of the long tail. Yes, there are lots of people searching for used cars, or car loans, or NASA, or telephone directory lookup, these kinds of popular searches. But there are tons more people and tons more searches taking place in those strange, weird results where it's hard to even know what people are searching for. Let's take a look back at the search results. So someone's performed a search in here, right? They've done a search, let's say for NASA, right? They're looking for the National Aeronautics and Space Agency. I hope that's the acronym. And you can see here that they've got these results. These results right here are called organic. And they are generated through this algorithmic process that we've been talking about today. The crawling, the indexing, the calculation of results, and then the algorithm that ranks them all up here. This portion over here is called paid search, or pay per click. The paid search results are done a completely different way. Advertisers will bid on placement in these results. You can do it through programs like Google's AdWords or Bing's Ad Center. And these results, on average, garner about 10 to 15% of all the clicks on an average search result page. These results over here, the organic ones, they tend to get between 85 to 90% of all those clicks. There's a ton of traffic going to these search results, these organic results, and the only way to influence them is with SEO. Let's talk about how to do that. It turns out that SEO is a very simple process, but one that's challenging to execute well. Today I'm going to walk through some of these basics of how you do SEO and get your pages into the search engines indices and give them the ability to rank as well as they possibly can. So first, we're going to start at the base of the SEO best practices pyramid with content and accessibility. It turns out that pretty obviously, if you don't have content on your website, content search engines can read, which 99% of the time means text content or hopefully images with attributes about them, or video or audio content that have some text associated as well. If you don't have that content and have pages that the search engines can actually reach with their spiders, you're going to be in trouble, right? So here's Googlebot. He's coming along, and he can reach all these pages, but if there's outlying pages down here that maybe no one's linked to, or they've been blocked with something like robots.txt, or they've told the search engines to no index those pages, or the content on those pages doesn't appear by default. It only shows to logged in users. It only shows when you have JavaScript enabled. It only shows when you've inputted some form fields. Search engines can't do that, right? The spiders don't have the ability to get through those sort of walls to accessibility. And so it's really important to make that great content accessible to the search engines. That's your first step. From there, we're going to move on to some keyword research and targeting. Now, this one gets a little bit trickier because not only do you have to produce the content and make it accessible, but you also have to have that content targeting things that people are actually searching for on the web, right? If you've got a great page all about running shoes, but you describe them as fast-moving footwear, turns out that the search engines and humans as well are going to be very unlikely to determine that your page is relevant and to want to click it even if they do see it in the search results. For this reason, it's important to use tools. Google maintains several with their AdWords program. Bing also has some. There's some third-party tools that you can use to do this types of keyword research. And they'll show you, when you input keywords, some expansions of those phrases and tell you how many times people are looking for them. So I can see that running shoes was searched for 425,000 times, or that's the search engine's estimate anyway, 425,000 times last month in the United States. And those estimates can help give me a sense of, I can see that football shoes are particularly popular. One thing you do want to be aware of is that these numbers do change. So you're going to want to regularly make sure you're updating your information as trends change and people do searches differently, new types of products and services become of interest to searchers, and old ones fade out. For example, football shoes is probably really popular because this month, while we're filming this, it's August. And in August, a lot of people are thinking about football season for their kids in college, for high school athletes, all those kinds of things. Next month, 2 months from now, 4 months from now, the popularity might go down. And so you want to keep track of that. Once you've got the content that you need, you've made it accessible to search engines, and you've done your keyword research and put those words on the pages in the right kinds of ways, you're ready to move on to link popularity. And it turns out that when search results get competitive, when there's a lot of people trying to all rank for the same searches, which really happens when these popular, important searches that have high commercial value come into play, things like running shoes, you're going to see that links are the main item that helps you push over the edge and get to the top of the results. If you have more people linking to you, better people linking to you, people linking to you with the right kinds of words, for example, if I'm trying to rank for running shoes, it would really be helpful if this link right in here said running shoes, right? And then pointed that link, make it underlined, right to my web page. That tells the search engines not only is this page voting for this page as a good resource, but it's saying this page is a really good resource about running shoes. This is much better than if they use something like click here, right? We don't want that. That's no good. So this link popularity, the search engines have lots and lots of different metrics that they calculate about links. And in fact, they do a ton of work to make sure that they're not counting links from bad places, spammy places, manipulative places. So if you get lots of offers saying, oh, you can boost your rankings in 10 minutes just by paying us $50 and getting listed in 5,000 directories or these kinds of things, those offers tend to be pretty shady. If they sound too good to be true, most likely they are. What you want to do for link popularity is produce good content that people will want to link to, find good ways to market that content, and get the word out there about not only your brand, but the things on your website, so that people will naturally want to vote and link for to those pages. The last piece in the puzzle, and by extension actually the smallest piece of the puzzle currently for search engines, is social media signals. So it turns out that the search engines, Google and Bing both have made deals with services like Twitter. Gmail obviously is controlled by Google, and Bing has all the relationships that the Microsoft suite of products, things like MSN and Hotmail and those kinds of things. And Microsoft also has an investment in Facebook, which may give them some access to data there. As these social sharing services provide information about the web's link graph, about what's popular and important, what people are sharing, what they're liking, what they're giving a thumbs up to on something like a stumble upon, or sharing with their friends on Facebook or tweeting about, those signals make their way into the search engines as well. We're still in the early stages of how search engines treat that data, but it's a good bet that in the future it'll become more important. And that's why it's critical to make sure that as you're doing great SEO, you're also thinking about, hey, how can I make my content, my website, relevant and valuable to people on these social platforms? All right, I think now that you've got this pyramid down, you are ready to dive deeper. I will say we have barely scratched the surface here in terms of the best practices, what needs to be done, but we've given a good idea and a good overview. From here, I encourage you to check out our Beginner's Guide to SEO. The Beginner's Guide is located on the Learn SEO page. You can search for SEO guide and find it in Google. There's a ton of deep information in there, lots of good resources and links. Urge you to check it out, and hopefully we'll see you in the exciting world of SEO. Take care.